Hi everybody, this is Mr. Zarzak, and in this screencast I am going to show you how to set up your graph for your Inertial Balance Lab. So open up Graphical Analysis and click on Create New Experiment, and we're going to be using the manual entry mode. Okay, once you're in there, it's going to default to this view. All right, what I want you to do is click the button in the upper right hand corner, which is the graph button, and select Table. Okay, that'll allow you to just focus on inputting data. All right, and so when you default to this, there's no data and there's also no column information. So click on those little three green circles next to the X and next to the Y. I'm going to start with the X and click Column Options. Here's how we rename. So I'm going to change my X to clamps because that's going to go on the horizontal axis, and the units are N. Those are just counting numbers. And when I'm done, click Done. And you'll see it's applied that both to the column heading, and it will be on the graph as well on the horizontal axis. So I'm going to repeat the process for the vertical column, hit the column options, okay, delete out that Y and change that to period. All right, and the units is the second, which we can just abbreviate as S. Okay, so click Done. Click that graph options button up in the upper right-hand corner. That would take you over to the graph, but before I do that, I'm going to enter in my data. Okay, so I'm going to go through one step at a time. So for 0 clamps, all right, for my sample data, I had 0.25 seconds as the period. All right, and I'm going to continue to enter in my data. Every time I do that, I'm just going to click Next on my keyboard to either toggle over to the next column or to the next row. Please, of course, insert your data, not mine. I don't need to see a graph of my data. I need to see a graph of yours. Okay, and if you make a mistake like I just did right there, okay, you just hit the backspace, all right, and just change. And if you need to, you can always just double tap on any of the cells in either row or column. That's a little weird on that in that this is a double tap as opposed to a single tap to make the cell active. Okay, so just go on through and finish up entering in your data. Okay, the number of clamps in the left-hand column, not the period. So I made another mistake, which is okay. Just go back and delete that out. All right, just about there. And once we have all of our data entered in, then I'm going to go and hit that graph button again, which again, that's supposed to look like cells in a spreadsheet. When you click that, it allows you to change your view, okay? So I go over to the graph. Oh, and I should mention, too, that I took a screen capture of my data table, so it's in my photo roll. Okay, I can just pinch zoom to change the scaling on my graph, just so if I want to zoom out or zoom in, or if I just double tap, okay, that actually allows me to auto scale. All right, the next thing I want to do is over in the left-hand corner, there's a little green button, okay, and if I click on that, the graph options, okay, here's where I can title the graph. So in physics, we follow the convention of vertical axis versus horizontal axis, so this is period versus clamps. Note in the title that I do not include units, okay? If I want units, I look at the axis labels, and they're already there. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I need to curve fit this in order to annotate it. All right, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap and hold. All right, and then I will drag across the data itself to select it. Okay, there's a touch to this. All right, when I do that, little button in the left-hand corner turns to blue, which means it's been activated. Okay, and some new options are going to pop up. So if I click on that little button in the lower left-hand corner that was green and it's now selected blue, all right, one of my options is Apply Curve Fit. So I can hit that Apply Curve Fit. Now this defaults to linear. So next to in the lower left-hand corner it says Curve Fit, I'm going to tap on linear, and it's going to bring up a list of things. Now, for most of you, the curve fit for this lab is going to be a quadratic. Okay, you're welcome to play around, all right, with the different options, and you'll see some of these curve fits fit terribly and other ones fit pretty well. Find the one that fits your data the best, okay, and select that. So like I said, for me, it's quadratic. The little box on the right side, it has the information about the equation. I'm not going to write any equation for this. We only do linear equations, all right, in this class. All right, but I do need to take a screen capture of this graph, all right, because I'm going to do my annotating and my assembling in Notability. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new note to work on, and then if I go to the little plus key, all right, the screen capture that I took of both my graph and the data table are both sitting down in my recently added. So I'm going to grab both. All right, so you just kind of tap to add it. All right, so there's my data table. Okay, and I'm going to add in my graph as well. Okay, and there's two things I want to do. One, I'm going to do a little cropping, and I'm going to do a little resizing as well. So if I select and I hit the edit, that takes me into this menu, and the crop function is over on the left-hand side from the menu. Okay, so I can just drag these little blue circles Okay, and I'm going to trim out the extra stuff from my graph that I don't need so that I just have the graph itself, title on the top, axes on the bottom. And the same thing too with my data table since I just screen captured. Okay, I'm going to cut out all that extra stuff from the bottom and the top. So I just got the data table. It's going to help things look a little nicer when I'm finished. All right, so then I'm going to go and I'm going to reposition this and I'm going to resize this too to make this nice and big. Get my data table out of the way. All right, notice too I've got the text button selected. That's how we edit images in Notability. Okay, I'm going to put the data table right below it so it's real easy for me to see the data associated with the graph itself. All right, and that looks pretty good. Okay, so now as far as the annotation goes, all right, what we're interested in is figuring out the mass of the cylinder in clamps. And we're going to do this graphically. All right, we recorded the period during the lab of the iron cylinder in the inertial balance. So for me, my cylinder had a period of 0.39 seconds. All right, so I'm just going to label that point on the graph like this. All right, I'm going to draw a line. Remember, if you draw and hold, okay, you can make your line straight. So that's for me, 0.39 seconds. Obviously, your cylinder will be different. We're going to do the same thing down to the horizontal axis, and I'm just going to use that little scissors tool to get this lined up. All right, and that's going to allow me to actually determine the mass of the cylinder in clamps, okay? And so right next to that, I've identified this point for my iron cylinder. I'm just going to label that point. All right, my data for my lab was 0.39 seconds was its period, and using the axis, that's equivalent to, let's see here, 2.8 clamps. So I'm going to put that right in my ordered pair. It's an 8, I promise. Okay, and my graph is now annotated, and this is what I'm going to upload into Schoology.